Okay.
Should begin. So, hi Nitish. So I'll give a quick introduction about the series. So India has been actively engaging with and spotlighting youth voices in disaster risk reduction, resilience building, and climate action through meaningful dialogues. In 2024, we had two inspiring youth leaders as part of our Youth Voices interview series, and today we have you. And we begin our first youth interview of the year, and we expect more to come. I'll give a quick introduction about you and then we can go to the questions. Yep. Nitish Barole is a development and humanitarian professional from India and the founder of Youth for Resilience, a youth-led organization working to build a sustainable and resilient world through climate action, disaster risk reduction, peace building, and youth engagement. With over a decade of experience in youth leadership and community resilience, Nitish has worked with a range of organizations including UNDP, NIDM, Cross India, Universal Solidarity Movement. He's also the co-founder and India country head of the Coexister Global Interfaith Youth Movement, working to bridge peace and climate action through interfaith dialogue. Nitish's work spans across grassroots communities and global platforms, where he continues to design and lead capacity building programs for youth, public officials, and organizations. And I'm very happy to also mention that Nitish worked with Sphere India as the coordinator for youth resilience and engagement. He led the strategy for empowering young people in DRR, climate action, and organized national level dialogues such as the Youth Parliament on DRR and climate change. And we are continuing his work through the interview series and featuring him. Very happy to welcome you, Nitish. Did I leave anything out on your introduction?
No, thank you. It's more than enough.
Would you like to add something before I go to the questions?
No, it's good.
Okay. So I mentioned that you have over a decade of experience working with youth disasters reduction and community resilience. What was the first spark that started your interest in this intersection, and how was your earlier experience? I mean, with interfaith work, and how's your current path has been navigated
So,
from where you started?
yes. So, the journey started quite early during my school time. This organization called Universal Solidarity Movement, they initiated the program in our schools. And from that point, I think from 2004, I've been engaging with them as a volunteer work. And that's where my whole work of interfaith peace building started. And slowly, I've been working with them as a full-time volunteer, maybe 2011. And that's what like do working with the young people, students, parents all over India, working training programs for students, teachers, parents across India. And then we had a residential program where people come to Indore, and then there was like a 7 days training program. That's what starting point of my journey. And then slowly that working with young people, uh, inspired me to continue this work, especially in the domain of DRR and climate actions. And that's where I started with this. You have to unmute.
So, thank you. And how did you identify youth voices, and how were you interested to engage only youth and focus more of them, and it so as to you started your own youth for resilience?
See, this whole idea of, of course, you also heard about it, and in every UN meeting and every conference, you will listen to this dialogue of young people are future leaders. And that's where I differ. I say young people are not only future leaders, they are our present leader as well. They have experience, they have skills, they have interest, energy to work on the topics which are going to impact us in the future the most. So that's where, like to working with young people especially started. And the journey of youth resilience also started the same way. I was a part of a UNMJCY program where I was a representative of young people at the Asia Pacific level for the DRR working group. And at the global level, international level, you've heard You listen a lot about youth engagement and why we need to involve young people. But at the ground, at the same time, I was working as a UNG with UNDP, and at the ground, reality was completely different. There was not actually going things happening, like actively involving or working with young people. So once my uh, assignment with UNDP over, I decided let me start this initiative with for resilience, where we can work with young people on two different fronts, maybe one on capacity building and the other part is the advocacy part. So that's from 2021, we've been working, as a youth for resilience and engaging in different aspects.
That's nice. So you mentioned that about working in the grassroots and how youth were involved. The field reality was different. Can you walk us through a couple of programs that you were involved through Youth for Resilience and give us an example of how it looked working in the ground? Like, for example, your DRR workshops in schools and your Youth Champions program. These are the couple examples that we are very interested in.
Of course, see, the whole idea of this whole initiative, Youth for Resilience, comes with the experience of listening to the different organizations where they say young people don't have skills to contribute in the spaces. Like they say, oh, yes, we can invite young people for the policymaking processes or, developing new programs, but they don't have understanding, they don't have experience. So that was like one of our key focus to have to do a lot of capacity building program where on different topics we train young people to understand the interlinkages of all these things, like how things are affected, in a in our system, we work in like very silos, but in reality, it's everything is very much connected to each thing. So that was like one of our key focus of capacity building. So like initially when we started our work, a lot more focus was on the capacity building. So we did a lot of programs with an ITM, with WWF, with different organizations for the capacity building of the young people. And then also at the same time, we are trying to reach out to the different spaces, like different international conferences, different workshops, different organizations who are interested to work with young people, but they don't have initially in the skills at the organization level, at the policy level, how they are going to work with the young. So that's what like our two focuses like. The first is to, and then asking these platforms to have a space to involve young people in the policy-making processes, especially decision-making processes. So that's what like our whole journey starts.
Okay, that's interesting. I mean, talking about how your capacity building programs, and I have two questions, follow-up questions. What kind of tools did you use to engage youth? And I mean, it's not the traditional method won't work out with youth. And what kind of tools and how did you make use of technology? And how did you track the impact of these capacity building programs that you did with the youth? First time, for someone, can you?
Yes, let me check.
Uh,
I think it's network issue.
yeah, 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 okay. Hi Nitish, can you hear me? No, we can see you. Can you hear us?
Sorry, my network dropped.
That's okay. I think
Yes.
we can continue from where we left. I asked what kind of tools you used for engaging youth and what kind of tracking methods you have for impact assessment.
Of course. See, starting with the tools of engagement. So of course, you know, initially what happened, we started during the COVID time. So initially a lot of engagement were like virtually. But slowly after that, now we preferred now not to have a lot of virtual programs. We wanted to have in-person meetings, in-person talks, discussions. But still, it takes, like if we have, like last year, we were a part of South Asia level youth consultation. So then you can't have it in persons. And when you wanted to have so many young people was involved. So one of the major tools now, what we're trying other than like, like the capacity building is the youth consultations, like what young people wants to speak, because a lot of the platforms where we were invited to speak on behalf of young people, we wanted to involve uh, what young people in the region said. Like, for example, last year in Indonesia, the 10th World Water Forum happened, and it is like a very big event, especially working in the development sector, and you are very closely engaged. And one of their theme focus was DRR. So then with different organizations, we partnered and then have a youth consultations at South Asia level, what young people wants to speak on this topic, especially focusing on uh, South Asia level, and then we collected all their inputs, and then not only presented there, but also provided like a brief note to the it's also like a youth voices from the South Asia region. So that was like another mode of our engagement. Of course, see, this is the point, and I heard discussions a lot. How you're going to do measure the impact. This is like very big, and a lot of youth organizations don't get support, especially monetary support or funding, because in the work of youth engagement, you can see when you're conducting a training program or you're doing something, it's very easy to track. Like, okay, we trained 100 young people in this last 6 months. This is the progress, like what they learned, and thus. But truly, to measure the impact, it's a really difficult. Even like we still also, like brainstorming a lot. What is the best ways to measure the impact of our work. But of course, we listen a lot of stories of young people who attended our programs and what they are doing at their level. So that was like, for us, it's like the reward of our work. Like the work we are able to do it, the work we are able to inspire them, and then the work they're actually doing on the ground. And for us, that's more important, and that's what our end goal, like we wanted to have a very local youth leadership, which work on the ground, who understand the context, who understand what's the challenges they are facing, and then who speaks their language or who understand the local norms and culture, and then work on that, rather than me going in different places or like to another organizations coming and doing the work. It's very important for us to all the solutions should be the like youth-led context based. So that was like that's the way we uh, like get feedback. Not impact, but like of course this is impact of our work, where young people across the globe in different countries actually implementing work inspired by after attending our programs. But yeah, that's the way it's been done.
Yeah, I can understand how difficult it would be to track impacts, but once you know there is a shift from awareness to action in terms of local youth leaders. And I think that is a huge impact that we're making. And what other challenge? I mean, we've talked about tracking impact, challenge, and monetary challenges. What other challenges did you face in your journey?
See, of course, this is the challenge, and I'm sure all lot of the youth organization face, and I also emphasize initially the all the youth organizations when they start, it starts with like a unorganized way. So when we started, we also didn't register, and we also even now very much emphasize to be like very fluid and flexible rather than to have very structured organizations structure. So that's the problem a lot of donor organization faces, because youth organizations across the globe have been sort of like engaging with hundreds of youth organizations, especially in the global south. This is the problem. Majority of this they speak because youth organizations are like unregistered, flexible, not very organized. So it's very difficult for the donor agencies or the like a big NGOs to support them financially and other ways. So of course, like especially the grant wise, because young these organizations can't take money and all those things. So this is like one of the very challenge almost all youth organization faces is the like the funding issues and the support. Apart from this, a lot of youth organizations, and then of course we also face is the type of our work is mainly focusing on the volunteer works. Like a lot of the time we were asked to work but not compensate for our work, and that's what's the issue we try to raise a lot now. This is like very unfair of asking young people to work a lot but not pay for their time and the skills and their efforts. So this is like the exploitation at the different level, where you ask young people to work but not compensate for their time and efforts. And this is like another cultural issues, especially you will see this especially in the global south, the trust issue, where you see like, and you heard also a lot, like young people don't understand the complexity of the situations. You don't understand why this conflict or why this problem is. You are young, you don't have knowledge and skills. So it's a very cultural issue, especially in the global south, where young people are not trusted, and the same goes for the organizations, where organizations, they don't have a policies how they can engage young people, and that's what like now our efforts a lot. We work with different organizations to support them to have their policies, how they can better work with young people. They should have internal capacities, they should have policies, they should have a structure at internal level to work better with them. It should not be very ad hoc, like, okay, we have some funding, so let's host a one event with young people, and that's done. That's very like a tokenistic way of engaging young people working with them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very challenging, I can say. But for people that are watching you and young people that are inspired and want to work in the same niche and start their own organization, what kind of advice would you give? Because all these challenges might be a little scary, but what kind of tips would you like to give them?
Okay, this is I should not be giving tips, but I think it's see what happened, and I see a lot is you see, like now, if you're seeing me going and presenting in some national conference, international conference about the work, they will say, oh, this is, like glamorized work. Okay, we should also do it. But it take efforts. And that's what I always say it like, the whole youth engagement space also, it's like, like we need to have talk a lot about what the actual work we are doing on the ground. Like it's very easy to go to conference and speak and talk about let's do this work, let's do this work. And like to be a speaker is very easy. That's what I always say, like to be a speaker is very easy. But how many of us are ready to work on the ground, without recognition? So that's where like your inspiration should come. Like, okay, are we ready to work on the ground? Should start the work. And of course, the the suggestion is always to the organizations, established ones. It's like, like they can support the youth organizations to establish to have like, if you recognize the youth group are doing well, they have potential. So there are ways, a lot of ways where the established NGOs can support. And like I've been seeing, especially in Bangladesh, they did some really fantastic work on this issue of supporting and establishing youth organizations with the support of different national and international NGOs who are already well established and old NGOs. So that way it can be done, like it takes time, especially youth organizations, But I also believe this is also a time when we don't, especially at the global level, you're seeing it, the resources are shrinking a lot. So it's very much important to work in a synergy, in a collaboration. And I'm sure if you go, and this is like one of my complaint is like, we talk a lot about collaborations, working in synergies, but the problem comes is like whenever there is a little grant or support is there, we became a competitor, like, all become like a competitions. So that's where I have like, because of the resources crunch, this issues will be always there unless we decide to work from the beginning in the collaboration to synergy to work.
That's interesting. When talking about Bangladesh, let's come back to India, and can you give us a few points where youth organizations and youth engagement, what kind of capacity and youth organizations bring to India, and where we can work in complementing to the government work or the other CSOs? What kind of capacity do you guys bring?
So I understood correct. You asking what youth organizations brings to the table. That's the questions, right?
I mean, that would be a little easier to say that we bring this, please involve us also in this work. I mean, also with a little in synergy, we also want to talk about equally engaging all people that have the resources. Right? So we want to kind of bring it forth to the people that are listening that we are also capable.
Okay, see, let me give you an answer, and then if you think you can have like follow-up questions or I didn't answer fully, then you can ask follow-up. See, what I think is it's like I should not be asking as a young people to be on the table, I should be part of the table where the decisions and policies are made. Why is it that? Because see, when we talk about the inclusions and then co-creation, it should be like everybody should be on the table. Like I don't have to fight to be on the table to make decisions. And also those decisions which are going to affect the me and like the generations to the most, it's like I'm sure you heard also there are like very funny examples of uh, on a Women's Day when the whole panel is men, so uh, it's the same way, like when you're talking about young people and how these policies are going to affect the young people should be at the table. I don't have to bring anything, like it's not like it's a thread happening, it's the whole generations is going to be affected to the most of the climate change and the disasters because of the climate change happening. So I should not be the only the one who is like, you remember when I'm affected, like I should be also the one when you're taking a decisions, how I see it, how it's going to be affecting me and what are my inputs, this is also called the lived experience, like uh, of course, a lot of young people living in the spaces which are already affected by climate change and different disasters. So they should be the one who is giving the inputs. Like, if you're making this policy, this is the way it's already we are getting affected, and what needs to be done. So this is like my first intake, like why I should be at the table, and then of course, the involving young people is like they have energy, they are in urgency, like this is like one of the things. We are young people are impatient. We want to do something. We have energy, innovations, technology. That's all other things we of course bring to the table. But of course, coming to the table should not be like because of the skills, but it's because we wanted to have like a very inclusive society, and every voice needs to be on the table when we are making any decisions which are going to affect all of us. That's my take.
I think I picked you the right needle. I don't have any follow-up questions. I'm very glad you could bring up the youth involvement in decision making as well. And talking about youth being, taking the brunt of climate change and how we are affected. I have a question that I ask every young person that I meet working in this niche. How do you cope with climate anxiety? When I first started working, I discovered this climate anxiety word after I experienced it. And I want to know how you cope up with it, if you have it, if you have had it.
To be very honest, I have anxieties, especially see what I see is like this is a part of the very a lot of complex problems which our generation is facing. So I have anxieties, but more than a climate anxiety, I have the anxieties about the current situation, the wars happening, and which like like the way the discussions happening in India also, and then also at the global level. So of course, I more see this as a priority, like uh, uh, but of course, I don't feel, but I'm very hopeful related to this. I think that's what the other thing is, like why I don't feel like too much depressed or how social, like this anxieties. I believe see that this is the problem is going to affect us all, and it is more important for all of us to take actions, not decisions, like actions. Right now what's happening is all of us wants to have other people to take actions, like and even if you follow the whole discussion of COP and all these policies, like like all the focus is on individuals, but a lot more players are involved, which needs to take a bigger actions. Like I don't feel like like planting a tree now is going to help us a lot in fighting climate change. If you're planting a tree, that's really good, but I believe we passed to that stage more than like 10 years, like right now we need to have like a very different approach. And that's where I also believe uh, this thing comes, the system thinkings comes, like how we have to observe how the systems are working, and what should be our focus. Like, are we very much focusing on very minute individuals, or the key players we have within? So that comes like my response, like, yes, of course, I'm worried this is going to affect. I've been to places which have been affected by disasters, and I can see the way, the climate change is affecting them. Uh, and then I heard stories from different parts of the world, how they are facing it. But yes, this is the problem, and we all have to take actions, yeah.
That's interesting. I mean, planting trees is absolutely fine, but we should focus more on conserving the forest. And yes, thank you. Before I wrap up with the last question, I have one more question for you personally. And was there a moment in your journey when you really felt that you're truly creating an impact? That one memory of yours that you can share with us.
Oh yes, I have this very interesting example, and then like it also, there's some examples changes the way you think, and Like if you heard, I very much focus on working on the ground, and then this ground inside should be helping us to build the policies. So I've been working in this one of the project of in Madhya Pradesh, more than 800 schools, working on the school safety and wash at the school level. And as a part of this program, I've been visiting a lot of schools, talking to children, giving them training, basic training. And in one of the very remote tribal village in Madhya Pradesh, I went and I was talking, kids were like third and fourth standards, not more than that. And I was talking about them like how, see, like you can't go and say like, okay, let me explain to you what is hazard. So you talk to them in their language, ask them their experience. And this whole class was telling me about their experience of lightning. And in a way, it's like they all were in the classroom and like lightning struck very close to their classroom. And whenever I think about this, and then I, of course, ask them what everybody was doing at that time in the classroom, like this whole class was sharing me, this happened in our very close to our class. And I was asking like what you all are going doing. Very shocking incident, but this was the reality, this is the reality. And then everybody was telling me like how they were panic and running in the class, all this thing happens. Uh, see, this was like my experience of how, and in the same journey, I went to one village where lots of children are losing their life because of the snake bites. And this 2-3 experience affected me a lot in a ways like if you see right now the discussion at the national level, at the global level, in India, we are too much focused on now like resilient infrastructure. Uh, this is like a lot more focus on right now on resilient infrastructure. But then you see the ground reality, what is happening. We are losing our children in snake bites, lightning. And then we are talking about a lot more focuses on infrastructure. So that's what I always feel like this was like very much, like how the reality and the policies or the discussions, what happening at the ground and what's happening at the conferences and the discussions are. Yeah. And this is like where I also shifted more on like what we need to do it, how we shifted our program, we changed our programs of training these students based on their reality. So of course there was like at the starting, it was like, okay, for all 800 school, you should give this basic training. Uh, but after this incident, you heard and then you modified. So I think that's what, like, for me, it was like very impactful moment for my journey, like to realize this and then listen to those stories and then change our ways to have a better impact for children.
Yeah, that was very nice. Thank you so much. And I think we can wrap up. And the final wrapping up question I would ask is, how can people contact you, and how can people engage with you, Nitish, and with Youth for Resilience?
Yes, of course, they reach out to us, to our email ID, to the social media. We are not very much active on social media. We don't have like a big team and all the individual. So the whole idea of Youth for Resilience is to work as a volunteer organizations. So we are still very much focuses on the volunteer organizations and do the volunteer work. So that's why we are not very much also interested to apply for the fundings and projects and all these things. So uh, we believe as an organization, this takes a lot of your time for all this reporting, monitoring, and all this thing. But we are more interested to work in a collaboration. Like we will bring our expertise to work better, how to design program for young people better, how to implement a project better for young people. Uh, So like that's what like now whole Youth for Resilience focuses like to, we wanted to work in a collaborations, because see that's what I wanted to tell earlier also, like now because of this whole resource crunches and everything, uh, what we don't want to build another organizations and then have all this structure and then become very rigid, all those things. We want it to be very flexible even now and then work in a collaborations in synergies with all the organizations who are interested to work with young people. So that's what like all our approach, and that's what we want to continue as long as possible.
That's very nice. Can you give us a few projects that is already going on in Youth for Resilience?
See, one of the interesting project we started working on it. Unfortunately, stopped with the US aid, and I hope we will be able to do it. It was like also for us like a very true, meaningfully youth engagement projects youth for the young people. So we talk a lot of like how you should have a project which is like designed by young people for young people. It should not be like one expert designing the program and saying like, okay, this is this is the project, and now you guys do the implementation. So with the WWF, we started this program, and it was like a very global program for Asia, Africa, and South America. And they wanted us, see, that's what I was saying. They wanted us to give us a grant to launch this program, but the whole program, the part was like, we said, no, we wanted to work in a collaboration for resilience. So we opted for the collaboration work rather than receiving a grant and then implement it. And then what we did is we started with the capacity building at the global levels. We hosted a virtual program, and then we launched our youth champion program. The whole youth champion program was like we invited only 9 young people. We got almost like 500 applications across the globe, and we selected this 9 young people, invited them to Sri Lanka for 1 week, and then designed this whole program. So like the program was like not me designing and then this program is happening in all these regions, but it's like this 9 young people. Initially we trained them on the topic, and then these 9 people gave inputs like what the program should be like it should be like a very like a state level or the national level, or even like the region level like Asia or Africa level. What should be the age group, or how we are going to engage young people. So that was like our whole process of co-designing the program. So this was like the truly meaning, the program for young people, designed by young people and for young people. So that was like, we are very proud of that program. We were able to launch the pilot program. Unfortunately, USA stopped, and then the whole program, we couldn't continue, but I'm very hopeful we will going to, like in a few months or even a year, we will be able to launch this program again. It was like uh, very interesting topic. It was like a nature-based solution for flood risk management. So you are involving young people to promote how we can use nature-based solutions to prevent flood at their level. So that was like one of the program. And now, right now, also we are working on few of the projects, mainly we wanted to, like use a design thinking. This is approach of how you use the design thinking and then develop solution for your users. So we wanted to start like something like a kind of a lab. So that's what we are right now working on to start a lab where young people can be taught this skill of design thinking, and then using this whole method, they design a solution for the problems they are facing. So that's just to build this, right?
That's very interesting, and all the very best for you guys bouncing back with what you started. Uh, Thank you so much, Nitish. That was very interesting. And would you like to give us a few takeaway points or a few wrap-up points?
Of course,
I
not
hope we've
much.
covered. I mean,
No, no,
if
that's
we've not
totally
covered
that.
anything that you wanted to.
No, that's okay. I don't want, that's was more than sufficient. But of course, what I believe is, especially in India, I'm not very much interested. Like, I'm more interested to work more on DRR and then climate action in meeting engagement space. And that's what, like, like when you start working with the sphere, that was the whole idea. But still, we are very much not like able to work on this topic, especially in India. I feel like, okay, we are very behind working with young people in DRR space. I was a part of the G20 DRR working group when India hosted G20. That's where I also see this whole issue of not involving young people in DRR space. So that's what like I always think, and whenever I reach out to different organizations, that was like my also concern. We should be doing more, very focused on DRR, youth engagement, working in, like young people working in the DRR space, which is still, we are not making a lot of progress on the other product. So that's the space we can work a lot with. That was my thing.
Thanks so much, Nitish. I think we've covered most of what people wanted to cover. And I think we should wrap up. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for representing Youth for Resilience as well. And, we hope we could connect with you for more such activities. And we are very happy to witness you working very nicely in our state. Thank you
Thank you
so
so much.
much.
Thank you for hosting me.